Good morning, everyone. My, uh, I'm today. I'm going to discuss about arthritis and related disorders. Hope everyone is uh, able to listen, able to see me. Okay. Okay. Good morning. Myself, Dr. Jagannanam. I am today here with you to discuss a few topics about arthritis and related disorders. This is musculoskeletal most common complaints which we encounter in day-to-day daily practice. You are required to know about them, about these disorders. If not, treat them. I mean, treatment is not that easy. Diagnosis is not that easy, but you are required to know about these disorders, a few points on these disorders, and then make a note and identify them. At least identification will give some benefit to them. So my topic will go on like this. Today I will be discussing about rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and the other seronegative spondyloarthropathies, degenerative osteoarthritis, and neuropathic joint disease, metabolic arthritis, and hemophilic arthritis. Arthritis is an inflammatory. See, all the diseases are classified according to congenital, neoplastic, inflammatory, traumatic, metabolic, and degenerative conditions. Congenital, neoplastic, inflammatory, traumatic, degenerative, metabolic. Of these, the four which were initially four, majority of the conditions are in this four category, bearing a few like metabolic and neuropathic, metabolic and degenerative, and some miscellaneous conditions. You have been in all these 2 to 3 months. You have been being discussed regarding neoplastic condition, regarding trauma. Most of the trauma is being covered. Now in the cold, I'm talking about inflammatory conditions. In inflammatory conditions, infective conditions were already previous talk. I have discussed some infective conditions, probably tuberculosis, specific infections. Now I'm talking about other inflammatory type of non-infective conditions or diseases, which I will be which are these which I have shown in this. That means arthritis means itis is inflammation always. Itis signifies inflammation. Arthritis indicates arthro indicates joint. So most of the times these are joint manifestations. In musculoskeletal manifestation, joint manifestation diseases are this. The list is not complete. This is the list that I am telling uh, in my subsequent classes. There are many other arthritis, the involvement of joint in other connective tissue disorders like SLE, scleroderma, Sjogren's, even other conditions. If I can find musculoskeletal manifestation arthritis, but classifying a connective tissue disorders is not that easy. Out of them, connective tissue disorders involving musculoskeletal manifestations, I have summarized, but the summary is not complete because it is not, arthritis is such where there is no cause and effect relationship uh, cannot be proven or cannot be told. Suppose other infective conditions, it is the infectious agent that is the cause, but here individual cause and the effect relationship doesn't take place. So it is difficult to classify and difficult to even group them in single entity. So I'm talking about these 6 entities in my subsequent classes. Okay, now these entities are very common day-to-day practice. You will definitely see 1 in 4, at least 1 in 4 people will have to these problems. Some of them are problems. You have to identify those problems. With this discussion, now why should you know about all these disorders I have informed? Because the treatment is also not specific. The treatment is also not and the prognosis is also not as good as those of the infective conditions. In infective conditions, I have previously told, if the early diagnosis and early treatment, you will have a good outcome. But these inflammatory conditions, even though you have an early diagnosis, outcome can be changed. Outcome can be changed, but it is not 100% satisfactory. So our entire aim of this inflammatory conditions is to diagnose, to provide a symptomatic relief, and if possible reduce their morbidity of the illness. That is what it entire treatment plan goes on. So we will quickly go through rheumatoid arthritis now. So rheumatic arthritis. See, you have been told about rheumatic. You have been finally. So acute rheumatic fever cases. You have been told about those things. Rheumatoid arthritis is one entity where it is a connective tissue problem involving multiple systems, and it is a chronic entity, and it is not a. It is associated with remissions and exacerbations. That is what it is. So it is an inflammatory condition. It's a connective tissue problem. It's a systemic problem. Majority of the manifestations are in the musculoskeletal system, but it doesn't mean it involves only the musculoskeletal system. It involves other extra articular, other joint systems also, other systems also. So rheumatoid arthritis is a very chronic systemic inflammatory disease involving joints and other systems also, but it is a connective tissue problem. So, characteristically it is symmetric polyarthritis affecting the small joints of the hands and feet. That concludes the definition of rheumatoid arthritis. In rheumatoid arthritis, I will quickly go through etiology. In rheumatoid arthritis, etiology is not that as clear cut as that of infectious agents. In infectious agents, we know that this is the cause, that is the effect, but in inflammatory conditions, we do not know. We think it is a probability. The probability of getting a disease with HLA-DR4, HLA is LLE, human leukocyte antigen, DR4 is one LLE, that major histocompatibility gene complex. People who are having this HLA-DR4 LLE is more prone to develop rheumatoid arthritis. That is the one of the probability etiology. Probability, that means we are not 100%, or if a patient, probability in the sense, a patient with HLA-DR4 LLE doesn't always get rheumatoid arthritis, or a patient with rheumatoid arthritis do not have always HLA-DR4 LLE. So a patient with HLA-DR4 LLE in his lifetime, he is more likely to develop rheumatoid arthritis. Similarly, first degree relatives of patients with rheumatoid arthritis are more prone to develop this disease. That is one of the etiology which was considered. Then it is also considered as an abnormal immune response to infectious agents. Some viral infections like Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, and parvoviruses. These viruses are one of the, and mycoplasma. All these are mycoplasma. These infectious agents, there will be definitely cytokine cells, and the immune response become abnormal. That is one of the etiology that has been proposed. There are many other etiologies that has been proposed, but these are the two etiologies which have some major predictive value. So that is why HLA-DR4 LLE and patients with infectious with with Epstein-Barr virus has abnormal immune response. So these are one of the etiological factors. So before coming to pathology, I would like to show this picture. This is a rheumatoid arthritis is an entity involving the joints. In this, what happens is, in rheumatoid arthritis, what happens is the articular cartilage gets destroyed. And once the articular cartilage gets destroyed, there will be ankylosis of the joint and the joint deformities occur, or joint gets dislocated. How this is occurring is what is described in this pathology. The pathology is described in stages. That means the disease entity it takes decades for the stage of sign to progress from one stage to next stage and next stage. Disease entity is divided in different stages. This is the normal joint, capsule, synovial membrane, cartilage, and subchondral bone, subchondral bone. So what happens is, this is normal DIP joint or normal PIP joint. Here what happens is, initially this is a stage of synovitis. Synovial inflammation and synovial hypertrophy occurs here. That means the synovium, there will be more amount of inflammatory infiltrates in the synovium, and the exudate forms and joint gets swollen. That is the stage of synovitis. Now, the peculiar thing about rheumatoid arthritis is, once the synovium gets hypertrophied, it forms a very loose fibrovascular connective tissue. That synovial hypertrophy is called as pannus. That pannus is formed. That pannus, what will happen is, it encroaches on the articular ends and eats away the bone, and eats away the subchondral bone, and also the articular cartilage. So it is a stage of synovitis, stage of early arthritis and deformity. This is a deformity stage. Now what happened? The pannus has formed. The pannus has eaten away the subchondral bone. The pannus is causing destruction of the articular cartilage. Once the articular cartilage is destructed, the underlying subchondral bone is exposed. Once the underlying subchondral bone is exposed, pain, deformities, tenderness, and pain occurs. Subchondral bone is exposed. Articular cartilage is also pain sensitive. Now what is happening after this stage? Even if it progresses into joint space complete destruction, where there is loss of complete joint, and there is a bony ankylosis here, or by means of heals by means of a fibrous ankylosis, or by means of a bony ankylosis. And what happens is, this pannus not only involves the subchondral bone, the ligaments in attachments here, the tendon attachments here are also destroyed. So the pannus eats away not only the subchondral bone, but the ligaments, tendons, and other structures. So what happens is, once the ligaments and tendons is destroyed, there will be deformities on the joint. Before ankylosis, the joint might get dislocated, or subluxated. Subluxation is partial dislocation. Joint might get subluxated, dislocated, ankylosed, or deformed. This is the stages of deformity or deformity. So pathological wise, rheumatoid arthritis, synovitis to deformity stages, it is the pannus that is responsible for all these things. Now it is written, this is what is the stage of synovitis, destruction, and deformity. This is the stages of description. Okay. Once in the stage of deformity, why the deformity occurs? Deformity occurs because, suppose one ligament is injured, or one ligament is inflamed. It becomes weak. When this side of the joint becomes weak, the other side of the joint, because of the muscular pull, it becomes angulated because of the pull. The more the pull, the more the deformity. The more the destruction, the more the deformity. That's how it occurs. Now, after learning briefly about the pathology, the next thing I want to discuss is, this is one picture, that is good picture showing the same thing. This is the normal joint. This is the articular cartilage, synovial fluid, synovial membrane, and capsule, capsule, and muscle surrounding the bone, and the tendon inserting into the bone. This is normal. In this, in rheumatoid arthritic joint, the muscle has become wasted, so it has become thin. Muscle has become thin. Why? Because of the chronic inflammatory pathology. Muscle wasting can be because of not only by the cytokines that has been released, because of the pain, the abnormal the joint assumes a position of abnormal position, that also can lead to muscle wasting. Per se, the cytokines release will also lead to the cytokines will lead to muscle wasting, or there is sometimes neuropathy that can be neuropathy, means the nerve in the nerve endings might be also destroyed. All these lead to muscle wasting. Muscle wasting, and then the main characteristic feature is synovial hypertrophy and pannus formation. The pannus, what it happens, the synovium should be this much, but here it has become swollen. It is encroaching on the bone ends and eating away the bone ends. So it is causing erosions in the bone. This is causing erosions in the bone. That is one problem. The other problem is the sinus not only destructs the bones, it also destructs the articular cartilage. Articular cartilage can also be destroyed by means of different mechanisms. And then this pannus not only destroys the bone, but also the ligament attachments and also the tendon attachments, leading to deformities, contractures, and other manifestations. That's it. This is a good diagrammatic picture of the pathology of rheumatoid arthritis. Now, this is what it described. The pathology, in pathology, pannus is the hallmark of rheumatoid arthritis. There will be pannus formation, the erosions of the bone will be there, and articular cartilage destruction will be there. Or thinning line leading to destruction of articular cartilage. So pathological information is there should be focal bone erosions, there will be synovial proliferation, and articular cartilage thinning. So pannus formation is other one, which is very characteristic feature, pathological feature in rheumatoid arthritis. Now, what is this pannus? Pannus is a synovial layer hyperplasia. Where it has a it is a thickened cellular membrane containing fibroblasts and granulation tissue. That's what is description described pannus. Okay, this is the picture which I want to tell. Now, rheumatoid arthritis is a systemic disease, and to identify the rheumatoid arthritic patients, it is not possible in a single sitting. A patient comes to you with joint pains, and you try to think arthritis, and that means joint pain. The patient might have inflammation, that is signs of inflammation, dollar, 4 signs of inflammation might be there: pain, swelling, redness, and warmth. These 4 signs might be there. And then you think it is an arthritis, some joint is involved. Based on which joint is involved, temporal distribution, that means how many joints are involved, how many within how many days, within 6 weeks or more than 6 weeks, or after one joint involvement other joint got involved. Based on these patterns only we can diagnose rheumatoid arthritis. That means to diagnose rheumatoid arthritis at a single setting, it is difficult to diagnose, but there are certain criteria where we put it in rheumatoid arthritis. Now, classically, patient comes with usually the age group that is involved is 25 to 40 years. It is an inflammatory arthritis. So, inflammatory arthritis. So this that means there should be signs of inflammation. But in arthritis, this classically it is not seen. In inflammatory arthritis, the signs of inflammation, the 4 signs of inflammation which I have told, swelling, pain, redness, and warmth, are not classically seen. So there are certain criteria which has been developed to know whether it is an inflammatory arthritis or a non-inflammatory arthritis. Early morning stiffness starting more than 1 hour is one of the picture which indicates that it is an inflammatory arthritis. If there is no, because what happens is in rheumatoid arthritis or in other forms of inflammatory arthritis, there might be warmth, but that warmth might not be detected by the palm of your hand, and the warmth is very minimal. Or sometimes the redness might not be clearly seen. Why? Because this different color of the skin also dictates that term. So color of the skin, if a dark skinned person comes to you, it is very difficult for you to see the redness under joint, or if it is very difficult for you to say the warmth of the joint. So the patient will have pain. There will be the swelling also might not be very much appreciated when compared to the opposite hand, but still you can classify them under inflammatory arthritis based on certain criteria. One of the criteria that is most important thing is early morning stiffness lasting more than 1 hour is one of the picture which tells us that it is an inflammatory arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, US group that is involved is 20 to 40 years. Classically, how the patient presents is a patient comes with stiffness of the hands, that is early morning while taking the glass or drinking glass, holding glass, it is very difficult. And as he does the work, as he starts doing the work, the stiffness gradually improves, and the stiffness by in the evening or in the afternoon, the stiffness will be reduced, and he by she will be able to do the activities. That is how the classically they describe. Apart from that, they usually tell the small joint involvement of the hands and feet, which is incapacitating them. And usually it's a long lasting, it's a long distance, more than 6 weeks. It is not that, there are some conditions where the arthritis can occur, but within 6 weeks, and then it disappears on their own. Or the arthritic pattern might be migratory or additive. Sometimes one small joint involves, and then that small joint involvement is completely lost, and then other joint will be involved. This is migratory pattern of arthritis, which is less commonly seen in rheumatoid arthritis. Additive pattern is one joint of involved, and then other joint will be involved, and then other joint. That means additive pattern of involved. This also is described in rheumatoid arthritis. But classically, small joints of hand or both hands, small joints of both the hands, and and that is symmetrical. Symmetrical means all the joints. Suppose PIP joint of the right hand is involved, PIP joint of the right fourth finger is involved, and the PIP joint of the left fourth finger will be involved. That is called symmetric polyarthritis. But no, it's not that classical. Every case doesn't come to you with that classical findings. A patient comes and early morning stiffness with joint pains, and he might have a single joint pain or might having a 4 to 10 joint pains, and you should be able to in a position to diagnose what it is. It is very difficult, not that easy. Now that's why lab investigations also help you, but still sometimes some patient only presents with isolated knee synovitis. I mean, the knee will be swollen, red and warm, and you have to diagnose whether it is an infective or a non-infective condition. Yes, sir, infective and non-infective condition. Early morning stiffness will be there. That means sometimes a rheumatoid arthritis can present even as a monoarticular involvement. Now, what happens is that is one thing. Now, so how we diagnose that, we will based on the lab investigations, we will know. Now, in a late onset, in a early in these are the clinical features: joint pains and symmetrical polyarthritis is what we see. Then in a late and when the disease entity has progressed, there will be some deformities in the hand. The hand deformities will tell us that this is a rheumatoid arthritis. What deformities has been described in a rheumatoid hand? The classical deformities in a rheumatoid hand are bottoming deformity and a swan neck deformity and a jet-shaped thumb. Other thing is ulnar deviation of the fingers. So deformities that you see in a rheumatic hand is mostly 5. This is ulnar deviation of the MCP joints. Ulnar deviation of the MCP joint. And bottoming deformity. In bottoming deformity, what happens is there will be flexion at the PAP and DIP is in extension. This is a botnet deformity. This is botnet deformity. This is swan neck deformity. Swan neck deformity, where PIP is in extension and DIP is in flexion. So this is swan neck deformity. Ulnar deviation of the metacarpophalangeal metacarp MCP joints and swan neck deformities, botnet deformities, 3 here. And sometimes the subluxation of the MCP joint can occur. If the deformity, if this contracture is more and more, the joint gets subluxated, and subluxation, MCP joint subluxation can be seen. Ulnar deviation can be seen even in wrist joint. So not only in MCP joint, ulnar deviation can be seen even in wrist joint. These are the 5 deformities classically which is seen in rheumatoid arthritis late stage. Rheumatoid arthritis not only involves the joints. Usually rheumatic hand, the deformities I have told, but other extra articular features of rheumatoid arthritis is rheumatic nodules. These nodules are usually seen in about the bony prominences over the olecranon or other bony prominences, but these nodules can also be seen in the tendons, tendon sheets, and it is described. The other extra-articular features, cardiovascular system can be involved, and pleuritic lung. In lung, pleurisy or pleural effusion can be seen. In lung, interstitial lung diseases can be seen. In lung, the other involvement is bronchiolitis. So that these are the things that in a rheumatoid arthritis patient, association of rheumatoid arthritis and the lung diseases are these: pleurisy or pleuritic type chest pain, pleural effusion, bronchiolitis, or interstitial lung diseases. These are the lung involvements. Cardiac involvement is described, not only pericarditis, even the endocarditis, mitral valve regurgitation, aortic valve regurgitation has been described, and even AV nodal blocks, heart blocks, secondary heart block is also described in cardiac manifestations. That means rheumatoid arthritic patients, there will be cardiac involvement and lung involvement also is seen, not only joint involvement. As the disease entity progresses, lung involvement, initially it is only the musculoskeletal problems, but as the disease entity progresses, cardiac and lung involvement is also seen. Okay, next, even ischemic heart disease is also described in rheumatic arthritic patients. Now, other manifestations, kidney involvement is very rare in liver involvement and kidney involvement are very rare in rheumatoid arthritis. Cardiac and main is cardiac and lung. These are the main things. Other things are eye involvement will be there. In eye, the involvement is UV. There can be scleritis and episcleritis is described in eye involvement. Apart from that, other neurological involvement that has been described is entrapment neuropathies like carpal tunnel syndromes or carpal tunnel syndrome is described. Tenosynovitis of the wrists, plantar fasciitis, even lateral epicondylitis or medial epicondylitis. All these describes. All these entities have been described. Not only joint involvement, but all these involvements have been described. But other most important thing that is we should know it, cervical spine subluxation, atlantoaxial joint dislocation is described in a rheumatoid arthritis patient. This is a life-threatening complication, so we have to know about this. Cardiac, lung, and cervical spine involvement are the things which we have to know. In cervical spine, the atlas and the axis might get dislocated. The Wadentide process might come forward and might go backward, not forward, might go backward and hit on the cervical cord, and then quadriparsis can occur. So that is a very devastating complication which we have to think of in a long-standing cases of rheumatoid arthritis. Now, and then other syndromes that has been described is Feltis syndrome, where the hematologically we can see anemia. Anemia because it might be because of the chronic disease, anemia of the chronic disease, or by means of iron deficiency anemia that can be occur here. In Feltis syndrome, it is a syndrome that is described with rheumatoid arthritis patient where there is neutropenia and splenomegaly. Apart from uh, rheumatoid arthritis, but in Feltis syndrome, it is very rare. Less than 1% of the people it is seen. But what happens is it is seen in a nodular forms of rheumatoid arthritis. It is associated with neutropenia, splenomegaly, and rheumatoid arthritis, Feltis syndrome. These are some of the extra-articular manifestations that you see in rheumatoid arthritis. Extra-articular manifestations. Now, I have told articular manifestation, symmetric polyarthritis, small joint involvement of the hand, early morning stiffness. This is the classical picture which you see in rheumatoid arthritis. As disease entity progresses, rheumatic deformities occur. Some of the deformities that has been described in rheumatic hand, I have told the 5 deformities of the hand. Apart from that, as the disease still progresses, rheumatoid nodules and other manifestations occur. Now, your aim and my aim is to detect the patient, is to detect as early as possible, not at the stage where deformities or major manifestations has occurred. So, to diagnose the disease entity early, we need some lab investigative reports. Since it is an inflammatory condition, so we have to go for ESR, CRP. They will definitely be involved. ESR is ESR is elevated. Why? Because fibrinogen is increased. Fibrinogen is increased. It causes Rolex formation. Fibrin forms. Fibrin causes Rolex formation of the RBC. RBC gets settled very fast. So the length of the ESR will be elevated. So that is, I have already described why ESR gets elevated in any inflammatory condition. Any inflammation, ESR will be elevated. CRP also will be elevated. It is an acute phase reactant protein, CRP. Liver synthesis is there. It increases because of the increased synthesis, C-reactive protein occurs. Okay, but this is doesn't show that in rheumatoid arthritis. It shows it is an inflammatory etiology. CBC, anemia will be seen. So anemia will be seen. So anemia will be seen. Anemia might be because of chronic anemia, chronic anemia of chronic disease. Total count, because it is an inflammatory condition, counts are elevated. Usually counts are elevated. Differential count, neutrophils or lymphocytes, depending upon whether you see it acutely or whether you see it chronically, is elevated. The main things that autoantibodies are, two types of autoantibodies are associated in rheumatoid arthritis. One is rheumatic RA factor, other thing is anti-CCP antibodies. We need to know small things about rheumatic factor. RA factor, it is an autoantibody against the IgM FC portion of the IgM. It is an autoantibody. Rheumatic factor, RA factor, is an autoantibody produced against the own immunoglobulin, IgM, FC portion of the immunoglobulin. It is an IgG variety of immunoglobulin. So, rheumatic factor is IgG variety of immunoglobulin, but it is a target to its IgM FC portion. Now, why I need to tell is this rheumatic factor is associated with pathogenesis, with active inflammation. But abnormal immune response is occurring because of some of the rheumatic factor. But there are cases where there is absent rheumatic factor, but still rheumatoid arthritis can be present. There are cases where rheumatic RA factor might be absent, even then rheumatoid arthritis and symmetric polyarthritis and joint involvement can occur. Not only that, this rheumatic factor might be present not only in rheumatoid arthritis, other forms of rheumatic diseases like SLE, Sjogren's, and other connective tissue disorders also, this rheumatic factor can be positive. So presence of RA factor doesn't indicate it is a rheumatoid arthritis. So rheumatic factor presence might help in diagnosis of the disease, but it is not sensitive or not highly specific. Anti-CCP bodies is some of the antibodies. This is also an antibody, but this will have some specificity, a higher specificity than a rheumatic factor. But even that, also the same problem, it is not highly sensitive and highly specific. More specific than rheumatic factor, but even then it is not highly sensitive and highly specific. So now we do not have any lab test to tell that this if it is positive, then it is rheumatoid arthritis. So okay, so rheumatic factor and anti-CCP are other auto antibodies seen in rheumatoid arthritis. You should do routinely liver function test, because the drugs which we are give for rheumatic factor, rheumatoid arthritis, liver function and kidney function has to be taken. Indirectly, we'll get an evidence from radiographs. In radiographs, the best what is the things that you see in radiographs? In radiographs, soft tissue swelling, joint space narrowing. Here you can clearly see joint space narrowing. Joint space narrowing can be seen in other forms of arthritis also, but marginal erosions, that is erosions because of the planus restricting the bone, marginal erosion. This marginal erosion indicates that it's a rheumatoid arthritis. But to detect marginal erosions, it is in late stage of arthritis, but not in an early stages of arthritis. We cannot diagnose. In early stages of arthritis, we can only see the fusiform swelling or the soft tissue swelling in the radiograph, but that doesn't give it a diagnosis. Marginal erosions and joint space narrowing, and periarticular osteopenia. These three features indicate we can tell that it is rheumatoid arthritis. Now, but radiograph, before to see it in a radiograph, the disease entity has to be late stage. That is the problem. Now, synovial fluid analysis. Now, you cannot see if the joint involvement is in small joints of the hands and feet. You need not get synovial fluid analysis. You can give a trial, or you can wait for other factors to be positive. We can get a laboratory investigations, and then we can, by means of certain criteria, we can diagnose rheumatoid arthritis. Suppose there is an isolated joint swelling, that is knee joint has been swollen. Then synovial fluid analysis and synovial fluid culture or biopsy might help. Isolated knee joint involvement, or isolated ankle joint involvement, or an isolated elbow joint involvement, then synovial biopsy or synovial fluid analysis will help. In synovial fluid analysis, even though synovial fluid analysis can help, but it is not commonly done for diagnosing of rheumatoid arthritis. Synovial fluid biopsy and histopathology will help, but synovial fluid analysis is not indicated at present in rheumatoid arthritis. Previously, by means of synovial fluid analysis, we used to get a rough idea whether it is inflammatory arthritis or a non-inflammatory arthritis, but it is not required at this stage. Now, the only analysis and synovial fluid tab is only indicated for two conditions: to reduce the pain, what is therapeutic, and in diagnosis, to know about the culture, to know whether it is an infective or a non-infective condition. Culture will be helpful. And in gouty arthritis, these are the only things we are doing. In crystal arthropathy, we are taking synovial fluid analysis. Now, in rheumatoid arthritis, synovial fluid analysis is not being routinely done. Now, when we do synovial fluid tab, synovial fluid has come, and when we keep it, it should be yellow colored. Normally, it will be yellow colored, but in a rheumatoid arthritis, cells are more. So, the yellow, since the cells are more, the synovial fluid color will be different. It will be straw colored. Straw in the sense, it will be straw colored, brown, reddish brown colored, because more amount of cells are there. And initially, previously, they used to do Mucin clot test. That Mucin clot is friable. That means when the Mucin clot is stretched, that clot is immediately breaks away. That indicates it is an inflammatory part of the arthritis. And a counts, we used to do total counts in the synovial fluid. We used to do synovial fluid glucose level, synovial fluid protein level, synovial fluid culture. These are the things we used to be done. Crystals. So these four used to be done. Synovial fluid culture, crystals, protein, glucose, and counts. Counts elevated, but not very high elevated. 20 to 20 to 2000 to 50,000. That is what the usual counts levels in rheumatoid inflammatory arthritis. And glucose will be low, and culture will be sterile. Crystals will be absent. Now, the synovial fluid analysis in rheumatoid arthritis is not being done. It is only being done in only 2 or 3 conditions. One is to direct crystal induced arthropathy, and to know about the therapeutically to reduce the pain, and other thing is to get a culture. To get a culture done, we are doing it. But it is described. Previously, it used to be described. The criteria: mucin clot formation, mucin clot for becoming friable, and counts 20 more than 20 to 2000 to 50,000 was considered diagnostic criteria. Now it is not at all considered. Synovial biopsy will tell about the PANOS. Histopathology will give a conclusive evidence that that there is inflammatory arthritis. But even with the synovial fluid biopsy and histopathology, granulomas will be seen. Synovial fluid granulomas will be seen, but even then we cannot. Even then, confirmatory thing cannot be occurred. So you want to get a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, there should be a criteria for diagnosing rheumatoid arthritis. One of the diagnostic criteria which we used to follow from 1987 criteria. There is 7 criteria. Out of it, 4 should be positive to become to call it as rheumatoid arthritis. There is shortcomings of this criteria, but this criteria is described in textbook, so I am telling. One thing is early morning stiffness is one condition. Joint swelling in joint swelling in small joints of the hand. What hand? MCP joints, proximal interphalangeal joints, and MCP and not other joint. MCP in hand, MCP joint, and proximal interphalangeal joints. Distal interphalangeal joint and middle interphalangeal joints are excluded in soft tissue joint swellings. And wrist, elbow, knee, ankle, and metatarsophalangeal joint. First metatarsophalangeal joint is also excluded. But these are the joints that has to be swollen. At least 3 out of these 14 was considered 1 point is to be given. So early morning stiffness, soft tissue joint swellings. Next, symmetrical swellings. That's symmetrical swellings, rheumatoid nodules. These are all clinical factors which we used to be do. Soft tissue swellings involving 3 out of 4 joints, 3 out of 14 joints. Morning stiffness, symmetrical swellings, and rheumatoid nodules. These are the clinically which we used to see, and the 7 and the remaining 3 are rheumatic factor positivity. Rheumatoid factor positivity, X-ray showing erosions, and juxtaarticular osteoporosis. These rheumatoid arthritic this criteria 4 out of 7 is considered positivity. So the X-ray showing erosions or erosions, juxtaarticular osteoporosis, rheumatic factor positivity, rheumatoid nodules, symmetrical swellings, soft tissue swellings in the joint, and early morning stiffness. 4 out of 7 was considered positive. This criteria is not followed nowadays, but it is one criteria which is very good criteria. This why? Because rheumatoid nodules occur only in late stages of the disease. Early stages of the disease, rheumatoid nodules are not seen. That means if you consider this criteria, rheumatoid nodules positivity as one of the thing, then you by the time you diagnose the disease, the entity has already crossed the stage of early arthritis or early synovitis. At that stage, even though you give disease modifying drugs, the deformity will not be, you cannot correct you can only provide a rehabilitative services at that time rather than a early diagnosis and treatment. Secondary prevention cannot be possible when the rheumatoid nodules occur. So the other shortcoming with this uh, thing is radiographs. Erosions and juxtaarticular osteopenia can be seen, but erosions are seen in an late stages. So the same problem, you cannot diagnose the disease early, and because this entity is this criteria is causing late diagnosis. The criteria in 2010 American College of Rheumatologists has, this is also ACR 1987 criteria. ACR 2010 they have come up with a new entity called uh, American College of Rheumatologists 2010 criteria. Now they have uh, how they have given a criteria out of 10, 6 more than 6 out of 10 is considered positivity for definitive RA. This is the classification that we are following now. 2010 ACR regular criteria. 4 criteria, there will be 4 entities. One is joint involvement, one is blood test, one is duration of illness, and the fourth one is acute phase reactance. That is also blood test. So 2 blood tests and 2 clinical tests. So duration of illness less than 6 weeks, no points, 1 point. Joint involvements. Joint involvement is based on more than 10 joints or one joint, 2 to 10. So here it is given large joint involvement. uh, is it a large joint, one large joint, or 2 to 10 large joints? Large joints in the sense knee, hip, ankle, uh, knee, hip, ankle, shoulder, elbow. Okay. Other large joints, even wrist joints are also considered normal. That means 6, 2 to 10 means here what is upper limb we have on shoulder, elbow, wrist, means 6 joints. In lower limb we have hip, knee, ankle, that means another 6 joints, that means 12 joints. So 2 to 10 large joint involvement is considered one criteria is being given. Small joints. Small joints in the sense small joints of the hand. In small joints of the hand, we are excluding some joints. Distal interphalangeal joints and middle interphalangeal joints are excluded, and MCP and uh, here see distal interphalangeal joint, first CMC and first metatarsophalangeal joints are excluded for assessments. Okay, down. Next, if the small joint is 4 to 10, then we have 3 criteria. If the small joint inclusion is more than 10, then we have 5. So based on the number of joint involvement, we can criteria is given here, whether it is a 1 large joint, 10 2 to 10 large joints, or small joint involvement criteria is given. You can, next is duration of illness less than 6 weeks and more than 6 weeks. Next thing is blood test. In blood test, rheumatic factor and anti-CCP antibodies. If it is negative, 0. Low positive means more than, less than thrice the normal value, and then 2 points. More than high positive, more than thrice the normal values, it's considered 3. Acute phase reactance, abnormal CRP and normal CRP and normal ESR 0. Abnormal CRP, even abnormal ESR is also considered, given 1 point. Or ESR is normal but CRP is abnormal, then also given 1 point. So now what is the advantage of this classification? The advantage of this classification is, you can suppose a patient comes with a unilateral knee synovitis. That means a single joint is involved, single joint with clinical knee synovitis, and then based on this clinical criteria, we can diagnose whether it is a probable rheumatoid arthritis or a definite rheumatoid arthritis. Definite rheumatoid arthritis score should be 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. If the score is 4 to 5, then also we treat it as rheumatoid arthritis. Why? Because as the disease entity increases, maybe he will criteria, and that means suppose the patient is followed for another 2 to 3 years, maybe his criteria becomes 6. So even the best advantage of this criteria is, if it is 4 or 5, we still wait. We still wait for, we still treat it as an inflammatory arthritis. We still treat it as a pre-rheumatoid arthritis. That means patient is treated, giving, thinking that he will fulfill the criteria at next in a later stage. Now, what is the advantage of this criteria? We can diagnose the disease early. Once we diagnose the disease early, we will get more patients. That means even though there are sometimes, even though there are non-rheumatoid arthritic patients also might get involved in this criteria, but still there is no harm in giving early disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs into those patients. That is why we started this criteria. This is what is described. Only 4 based now, 2 clinical criteria, 2 laboratory criteria. 2 clinical criteria based on the joint involvement and the duration of illness. 2 laboratory criteria, CRP and ESR, and rheumatic factor and CCP. Based on this, we can diagnose the patients as rheumatoid arthritis and non-rheumatoid arthritis at this stage. The disadvantage of this criteria is patient with non-rheumatoid arthritis also gets included in this criteria. But what happens is when you follow those patients for longer duration, non-rheumatoid arthritis patients will fit into their respective categories. Rheumatoid arthritic patient definitely will fit into this rheumatoid arthritic patient. That is the advantage. With this, now you know how to diagnose a rheumatoid arthritic patient. With this criteria, you will diagnose a rheumatoid arthritic patient, probable rheumatoid arthritis, or definitive rheumatoid arthritic patients. Once we diagnose the rheumatoid arthritic patients, what is the treatment protocol? Treatment protocol is, we cannot completely give a nice, completely remission-free disease entity cannot be, and I mean, zero joint involvement is never possible. At least 1 joint involvement. Suppose there is a 20 joint involvement, or suppose 10 joint involvement. When the disease modifying drugs or some NSAIDs or steroids are given, the patient pain tolerability will be reduced. His morbidity of the illness will be reduced. He will be able to do his daily activities, and then remission-free status can be achieved. Remission means doesn't mean that he will be 0 joint involvement. There will be 1 joint involvement, but at least one or less than 1 is considered as remission, maintained remission. So treatment protocol, it is not a simple entity. It is a multidisciplinary approach, and main aim is to preserve the joint mobility and prevent the deformity of the joints. Other things is, we give the nutrients, vitamin C supplements, and drugs. Okay, next thing is NSAIDs, steroids, and disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. These are the drugs we have. Steroids, well, for a low dose steroids can be given for a longer duration. There is no harm. These are the drugs. Okay, next, disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. What are disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs? These are the drugs which reduce the symptomatology, or which reduce the disability, or which reduce the progression of, which retard the progression of joint damage. So thereby improving the work capacity and quality of life. This is called disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. There are many disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. Conventionally, we used and still being used methotrexate, sulfasalazine, hydroxychloroquine, leflunomide. Other previously which was used, cyclosporin, tacrolimus, gold salts was also used, minocycline was also used, but conventionally methotrexate, sulfasalazine, hydroxychloroquine, and leflunomide as the conventional disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. There are biologics. These are modified, these biologics. Once the methotrexate is the drug of choice for rheumatoid arthritis, is a very good drug. It is very good entity, very good safety profile. Wise we have monitored the kidney and liver parameters, but otherwise disease modifying anti-rheumatic drug, methotrexate is a drug of choice. For reducing, this is for maintaining the remission. For reducing the exacerbation, we have to go for NSAID or steroid. Steroid can be given directly locally into the joint, or by means of systemically steroid can be given. Okay. Now, disease modifying drugs, apart from conventional synthetic disease modifying drugs, there are biologics. These 3 groups are biological drugs. Biologics, latest group of drugs which has with a safety profile, but has to be monitored under a rheumatologist. So by biological originated disease modifying drugs, which are nothing but TNF alpha inhibitors, infliximab, etanercept, adalimumab. Most commonly used is adalimumab. Okay, then other thing is anakinra is the latest drug, and tocilizumab is other drugs which have been used as biological originator drugs. Other things is Janus JK inhibitors is other one which came, which is called target synthetic DMARD, disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. Other thing is biosimilar disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. These are later. This group will definitely be included. What happens is that this, as days progress, other molecules also will come. When other molecules will come, and this group will definitely be increased. So, but conventional disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, methotrexate, sulfasalazine, hydroxychloroquine, leflunomide, are the drugs which have been prescribed with a good for the decades, and which is being continued. Newer drugs are the biologics. They are grouped into three entities: biosimilar, biological originator, target synthetic. Based on the safety profile, they are being used. Other things is splinting, physiotherapy and splinting. Look, joint deformity, for the Botnet deformity, Botnet splint, and for a swan neck deformity, swan neck splint has occurred. Ultrasound interferential therapy will also be helpful. Surgeries is only rehabilitative and reconstructive. Initial stage synovectomy will reduce the disease burden will help us in not only reducing the amount of PANS, but also will help in diagnosing the disease. Early stages, soft synovectomy. Late stages, to reduce the deformities, soft tissue releases or osteotomies for deformity corrections. These are for deformity corrections. Once the joint is gone, there is only two problems. Either two entities. Either we have to fuse the joint or replace the joint. If we want to replace the joint, you replace the joint surfaces by means of replacement arthroplasty, or completely excise the joint, excision arthroplasty. So excision arthroplasty is only possible in certain joints, but replacement arthroplasty is also possible in certain joints. Not all joints is possible. Arthrodesis and replacement arthroplasty are the other surgeries that are possible in rheumatoid arthritis. That is one. Quickly, I will go through seronegative spondyloarthritis, the second entity. That where here classical pictures here is rheumatic factor will be negative, and rheumatic factor will be negative, and the involvement of spine and sacroiliac joint will be seen in seronegative spondyloarthropathy. Already ankylosing spondylitis have been described by other colleagues, so that is not being told here. I'll be discussing about psoriatic arthritis and reactive arthritis here, and then conclude this topic. Psoriatic arthritis, I'll be talking about only few points. I'll be talking fast. Psoriatic arthritis, if every patient of psoriasis doesn't get psoriatic arthritis, it is an some patient, only few patients of about 10 to 15% characterized by psoriatic of psoriasis will have manifestations of musculoskeletal system. So a patient will have skin psoriasis or nail bed psoriasis and inflammatory arthritis, and the rheumatic factor will be negative, anti-CCP will be negative. What is the distinctive feature from rheumatoid arthritis is it is characterized by dactylitis, enthesitis, and synovitis. All these things I will tell you. And spondylitis, that means back spine involvement. So it is involved as spine, synovitis, dactylitis, enthesitis, and spondylitis. So Moll and Wright classification. This is the clinically how patients will get presented over the time. There will be 4-5 varieties of clinical patterns. One is asymmetrical oligoarthritis, just like a rheumatoid arthritic patient, one single joint involvement can be seen, or there can be symmetrical polyarthritis, just like a rheumatic arthritic patients. But To differentiate it with rheumatoid arthritic patient, there will be certain criteria that I will tell you later on. Now, or sometimes only distal interphalangeal joint arthritis involvement is seen. In rheumatoid arthritis, there will be no distal interphalangeal joint involvement. Or sometimes spondylitis and sacroiliac picture can, just like an ankylosing spondylitis patient, it can occur. Or sometimes the joint complete destruction form that is called arthritis mitulans. These are the 5 clinical patterns in which psoriatic arthritis can present. And patterns may change over time. So sometimes at any young age, they might present as asymmetrical oligoarthritis. Then they might change to this pattern, symmetrical polyarthritis or distal interphalangeal joint involvement, or they can go to arthritis mitulans like this. So it is not a clear-cut entity. So first thing is asymmetrical oligoarthritis, where similar to gouty swelling, it will be like the fusiform swelling is called dactylitis. Flexor seat synovitis and enthesitis is also seen. Asymmetrical oligoarthritis. In symmetrical polyarthritis, there will be rheumatoid arthritic like pattern with dactylitis and but in I have told symmetrical polyarthritis variant. The thing is, distal interphalangeal joint involvement, early morning stiffness will not be present as much as in rheumatoid arthritis, and swelling is like as fusiform swellings will be seen, and symmetrical joint involvement will be option, and subcutaneous nodules are option, and rheumatic factor is negative. So the same thing, distal interphalangeal arthropathy. Here it is distal interphalangeal joint arthropathy. Arthropathy is seen. Spondylitis without sacroiliitis. Here in which the problem here the radiologically the vertebra are asymmetrical in ankylosing spondylitis. Vertebra are continuously involved, but here vertebra are not continuously involved, and the syndesmophytes, which are the characteristic feature of ankylosing spondylitis, are non-marginal and asymmetrical. That is one picture which will differentiate it from ankylosing spondylitis. Arthritis mitulans, where there is a osteolysis, that is desorption of the bone, and penicillin cup radiographic appearance is seen. This is called arthritis mitulans, where penicillin cup appearance, appearance of deformity. Classification criteria that is useful for psoriatic arthritis is Caspar criteria, where there should be 5 points here. Psoriatic with psoriasis should be there. Where should be history, family history, or current, or there should be something. Psoriasis should be there. Nail changes should be there, or negative rheumatic factor, and dactylitis, symmetric swelling of the joint, swelling of the fusiform swelling of the fingers or the toes. And radiographs should show juxtaarticular newborn formation. Any 3 out of these 5 is considered positive for psoriatic arthritis. We'll conclude today at this topic, and then we will same thing. I will conclude with this slide. In reactive arthritis, with triad of conjunctivitis, urethritis, and polyarthritis. This is associated with bacteria like Chlamydia trachomatis, Campylobacter, Salmonella, Shigella, and Yersinia. These are the causative organisms that are described. And here, knee and ankles are most commonly involved. And arthritis can be migratory. That means one joint gets involved, and then the other completely it is becomes normal, and then other joint gets involved. That's migratory pattern. Or additive type. One joint, second joint, third joint. Means additive type can be there. It is reactive arthritis. Thank you. We will conclude this topic now, and the remaining arthritis I'll describe in the next class.